What's up, guys? Welcome to another episode of Youth in Business TV. I'm your host, Rich Dioka. This is episode 8, and this episode is going to be about advertising, okay? And there's some significance in the number 8 when it comes to advertising. They say that when you advertise, if somebody's not really paying attention to what it is you're saying, it takes them about 8 times to really listen to what you're saying. So, for example, I'm not the kind of person that pays attention to commercials on TV or the radio. So when there's commercials on, I kind of tune it out. I kind of tone it out. And I like to say I'm immune to advertising. Advertising doesn't work on me. So a lot of people do that. Okay, but even if you are that way, even when you're not paying attention, your subconscious is still kind of hearing things around you, and it takes a person 8 times to get the message. So, for example, if I had seen a commercial 8 times when I'm watching the Super Bowl or whatever, and I'm not paying attention, if somebody said to me, "Oh, have you heard of such and such?" I'll say, "Yeah, I think I have." So that's why we're doing the advertising episode on episode 8. Okay, so the biggest thing I want to focus on in this episode, as far as advertising, is the idea of word of mouth advertising. Okay, I know you guys have heard of that. Basically, what it is your clients or your customers, they actually tell their friends about your business. That's what's called word of mouth. And that is by far the best type of advertising that you can ever get. I'm going to talk about I'm going to talk about that a little more in detail, and then I'm going to talk also about other types of advertising and some other tactics and tricks that you can use when you're trying to advertise. So again, I'm just going to briefly touch on, word of mouth advertising is really like I say, is the best way to go. There's a lot of businesses out there that they don't advertise, they don't spend a dime on advertising. Okay, there's guys that don't even have business cards because their advertising, their work speaks for itself, almost literally. So their clients are just telling other clients, they're telling their friends, their neighbors, their family members. So they really don't advertise at all. I've worked for several companies that they just didn't advertise whatsoever. So that's really what you guys want to work towards as far as your business. Now, a lot of the people that I just mentioned, they've been in business for like 20 years. They're the best at what they do in my city or, in this area. And, they've been doing what they're doing for like 20, 30 years. So us, we're new, but that you want to keep that in mind. You still want to try to achieve, that level of success in your business. Okay. So another thing I want to talk about is word of mouth is a very good thing, but it can be a bad thing. Okay. It's all about your reputation. I've heard a statistic somewhere that, if you do good work for somebody, or you give a good, a product or something, whatever it is your business is, if a client or a customer likes what you do, they're going to tell 3 of their friends, okay? And if they don't like what you do, they're going to tell about 5, maybe 6. So, word of mouth can work against you more than it can work for you. So that's why it's really important that you guys are doing the best work you can. You're giving people the best products. Your customer service is always top notch. It always has to be very, very, you have to be conscious of that because people are going to talk. And especially in this day and age with Yelp, and Facebook and, people just broadcast everything all the time. Let's say you have a shop or something and somebody comes in and they don't have a good experience. Well, it doesn't take them but 5 minutes to just get out their phone, type up a mean little, some words about your business and hit send, and there it is on Facebook, and all their friends are seeing that, okay? So it's really important that you guys, again, just try and offer, the best customer service, the best products. You're not trying to cheat people. You're not charging real high prices for something that is crap, but you try and sell it as something else. So that's important. Again, like I said, you really want to build your business to the point where you're really just advertising with word of mouth. That's always your goal. And it doesn't matter what business you're in. It could be anything. Some businesses are 100% word of mouth. I mean, some businesses, there's not a lot of advertising that you can do. So it's important that you guys keep that in mind throughout whatever you're doing. Okay, so when you start out in your business, though, you will definitely need to advertise, in other places, okay? And the best place, the quickest and easiest, is definitely Craigslist, okay? I've talked about Craigslist a bunch of times before in the series, and I'm going to talk about it again right now, but Craigslist is cheap because it's free. I think there are some things that you pay for on there, but I've never experienced that. I've never posted anything that I had to pay money for. So definitely utilize the free advertising, okay? And a lot of people are thinking, maybe I don't want to advertise on Craigslist. I spoke to a friend of mine who was trying to start a tree service business, and he was really reluctant to post on Craigslist because he says, I'm probably just going to get a lot of crazy people. I don't want to get, these weirdos calling me up and, sending me emails and saying, hey, come out to my house and look at my tree and whatever. But I would say that really the only reason why you would get those weirdo people calling you is if you yourself are a weirdo. I know that sounds strange, but like-minded people have a way of attracting others, you see? So you always have to be very, very professional in what you do and how you advertise on Craigslist. You can't have bad English, you can't have bad grammar, misspelled words, stuff like that. You're going to sound like an idiot, and the only people that are going to want to work with you are idiots. So take your time. There's advertising. There's websites that can actually create Craigslist ads for you. So if you need to, maybe you don't have the best English. Maybe you don't know at all, how to make it a Craigslist ad. Well, then go on these websites and pay whatever fee they have, and they can hook you up. So I'm going to talk some more about Craigslist in another episode. I already have a bunch as far as a few other subjects, but I'm actually just going to show you a solid episode on Craigslist, how to use it, how to advertise, what's the best way, how to make an ad, okay? Because like I said, a lot of you guys are probably not very experienced with how to make an ad on Craigslist, and it's important that you do, because that's really your first go-to thing when it comes to advertising. So I'll get into that a few more, episodes down the road, but I just wanted to mention that now. Okay, so let's see. And then, okay, so there's Craigslist, which is free. There are other websites which are free too. One is Backpage. They have free listings on there. What else? There's definitely local classified ads wherever you guys are. How effective they are, I don't know. Everybody knows the word Craigslist, so think about that. There are other types of advertising, okay, in which you will have to pay for, but they're also effective. So I'm just going to run down the list of the ones, and I'll get into them. I'm just going to mention them now, and then I'll elaborate in a few minutes. So there's flyers, okay, so printed material. There's magazine ads. Okay, there's newspaper ads, yellow pages. You can take out a little square in a yellow page. Let's see, there's websites. There are advertising. Well, there's advertising websites. I'm going to get into that pretty good with the detail and tell you guys about how that works. And then there's also things like Google Ads, AdWords, or something like that. All the big name websites have ways to advertise. So, and they're pretty cheap too. So I'll get into that. Let's see, what else did I forget? I guess that's it. So the first one we're going to talk about is flyers, okay? Printed material. So what you have to do to get that is basically you have to have a graphic, and then you have to go and print it. And then you have to do the legwork of handing it out. a lot of you guys are young, so you know how to make graphics. You know, you don't need Photoshop to make graphics. You can use different programs. I'm also going to do another episode in the series about programs that you can use, programs that are free, so you guys can, you know, make some graphics. I do all my own graphics. They're not the best. You guys know I have a construction company, but if I'm not swinging a hammer, the other thing I really like to do as a hobby is do stuff on the computer. So maybe it's just me. Maybe I just enjoy putting ads together and stuff. But I do my own. So if you can do yours, great. If not, pay somebody. It's okay. It's not that expensive. It's not that hard. The world is so saturated with online services that it's not hard to find a good advertising graphic. Okay, so you take the graphic, you go to the printer, you print them out, and then there's a couple different ways that you can distribute them. The first would be door to door. Okay. And a lot of people think that that's, you know, an old-fashioned way to distribute flyers. It is, obviously, but it's still pretty effective. You cover a pretty large area, so do that. You know, beware of the places that have dogs in the front yard. Beware of the places that say no soliciting. I made the mistake of leaving hangers on a door that said no solicitors. And I got a pretty irate phone call a couple hours later, so don't leave it if it says no soliciting. Another way is actually going door to door, and instead of just hanging it on the door, you actually ring the doorbell and try to communicate with someone. I've done both for my construction business. I'm just going to be honest with you guys. Both of those, for me personally, have not worked at all. I never got a single job from any of those. I got like 2 or 3 callbacks. I had about 4 or 5 people that were interested, and they wanted me, when I was at the door, they wanted me to explain kind of what the service was. But I never got a job from it. So maybe it's just my business, you know, I do a service, so maybe people aren't looking for services from a door-to-door salesman. But I just needed to tell you guys that it didn't really work for me. The other one is on cars. Now, you want to be kind of careful when it comes to people's cars. Obviously, that's their pride and joy. That's their prized possessions. So you definitely want to be careful you're not scratching anybody's car. You know, you're not having any belt buckles that are going to, you know, take away some paint or anything like that. You also have to be careful of where you put them. Just because there's a parking lot somewhere doesn't mean you're allowed to go and actually put flyers on the cars. There's a big arena here. It's where the Sacramento Kings play, actually. It's called Arco Arena. And years ago, I went with my sister for something she was doing, some job she had, and we were putting them on cars. The security came out in like 10 minutes, and they said, you can't do that. So we didn't think about that, but obviously they were even telling us, like, we were nice about it, we didn't give them any trouble, but they said if we, most people, when they see them do that, they make them go back and take them off the cars. So I'm glad we didn't have to do that. But, and then the other one that I looked into as far as my construction business, was there's a mall not too far from where I live in my hometown. And that's where all the housewives, the ladies that don't have jobs do have money and are buying clothes to go in their closet. That's where they all congregate on a regular basis. So I thought, man, this would be perfect, if I can put my flyers on the in the cars in the parking lot right outside of Macy's. So, but instead of actually just going and doing it, I called ahead and I called the mall and I said, what's your policy on putting flyers on cars? And they said, don't. You just absolutely cannot do that. And he said, if you do it, I'm going to come out, I'm going to tell you to pick them all back up, and you got to get out. And I said, okay. And so I said, well, what about if I just kind of stand, on the street as they walk out? So I'm not actually putting them on the cars, but I'm, handing them out person to person. And he says, well, then I'm going to cite you for loitering and, he said, like harassment or something. So, he made it very clear that it's just not something that they want to allow at their establishment. So that's too bad for me, but it makes sense. So basically, I think what the rule of thumb is, okay, and then I called my city as well. I did call the city and I said, what about putting flyers on cars on public streets? And the person I was talking to said, that's a kind of a gray area. You more than likely can get away with it. If it's legal or not, that's another question. She couldn't really answer that for me. But she did say that I could probably get away with it. So this is my kind of rule of thumb when it comes to flyers on cars. If it's in a private parking lot, private, parking structure, anything where an establishment owns that spot, it's probably not a good idea to put the flyers on cars. If you ask ahead, then maybe you can. But public streets, okay, so if you go to like your downtown streets where there's lines of cars, that's probably okay. And then there's a lot of parking lots that are actually not private, but like a grass lot or a dirt lot or something like that. You likely could get away with that. If you get caught, don't be a jerk about it. Just say, okay, I'm sorry. I'll leave. And they may not make you pick them all up, but just try and be as civil as you can with whoever's giving you a guff about it. Okay, so that's the flyers on cars. And then there's another type of flyer which is pretty effective, and that's just when you're a street walker. So when you're just on the street, you got a stack and you're handing them out. Again, public streets, you can do that. Public streets, they're people come up and down those public streets a lot, and you can hand out flyers no problem. Another big spot where there's a lot of people, and it depends on your demographic who you're trying to reach, but campuses, colleges, there's a lot of young people, a lot of students, okay? Excuse me. I don't know that you can go on the campus again and hand them out to people, but if you're like on the city street right outside the campus, maybe by the bus stop, then I think you're pretty good. If not, they'll tell you, and that's okay, but I actually plan to do some passing out myself of some flyers near colleges, so I'm going to give that a try, and let's hope it works out. So those are the three types of printed materials. There's more ways to distribute printed materials. There's like mailers. You can send them in the mail. That costs a little bit more, and I've never tried that. I don't think I would, because when I get junk mail in the mail, I just throw it away. So I don't think that would really be that effective. Although maybe it is. Maybe it does work. So you could think about that. The next type of advertising is magazines. Okay, printed material would be magazines, newspapers. Let's see, just anything that's printed. There are free magazines all over the place. So what I want to talk about as far as magazines, though, the only thing is it's pretty expensive. The nice part about magazines and newspapers is it's pretty, you can focus right on your target audience pretty well, because there's a magazine for everything. Okay, if you have a gym, there's fitness magazines. If you have a construction business like me, then there are home improvement magazines, even better home and garden type magazines. Any magazine, it's technology magazines. Okay, if you have a computer business or something. The only thing that I would caution you, and again, I've never advertised in a magazine, but I had a neighbor who, we have a local magazine in our not our city, but our actual town. It's a small town. It's a town within a city, but there's a free magazine called N Magazine. Okay, it's free. And my neighbor next door, when I lived back at my old house, she was the advertising person. And a quarter-page ad, was it a quarter or a half? I want to say quarter, honestly. It was about $500 a month. So that's pretty expensive. If you can swing it, then I would say do it, because again, you're going to target your audience really well. But if that's a little too much for you, then that maybe is not the best option. Like I said, I've never advertised in a magazine. I want to look into a few other ones, but just from that example, I found out from that free magazine, you know, trying to get into like ESPN or Wired magazine or Time. I don't even want to know what they're going to charge for a quarter page ad. So think about it. Look into it is what I'm saying. Let's see. Newspapers. Newspapers. Now you can buy ads in newspapers, but there's also classified sections of most newspapers. And classified sections, if you guys don't know, it's basically a printed form of Craigslist. There's not as many postings. They don't get updated every day or by the minute like Craigslist does, but they'll have like pets for sale, rooms for rent, cars for sale, and then they'll have services. And I actually did at one time put an ad in my little in our paper, The Bee, and it's called The Bee, and I got a job from it. It was before I even did closets. I was building other things, but so I did get a job from that, and I think it was like $40 a month, something like that. The only problem with those are they're really out of date. I mean, nobody reads a lot of people don't even get the newspaper, but those who do rarely read the classifieds because there's so many free classifieds online. And it was it was like 06, I want to say. Was it 06? It was about 06 when I put the ad in and I got that job. And it was like this real old timer guy who got it. So that just tells you kind of, you know, who's looking at those things. And if that's your demographic, then that's a good thing to do. You know, you can look into that. The only other problem with that is it's really limiting. I mean, it's obviously very, very small, and some of them you pay by the word. So, you know, if you have like a 10 word ad, you know, it's going to cost you however many things. And the funny part was the gal who set me up with my ad, she didn't even type it in right. She typed my email wrong. People always misspell my last name. So it was like, wow, this was really not a great way to advertise for my business. But it is out there. It is available to you. Okay, the last one as far as listings is the Yellow Pages. Okay, the Yellow Pages are probably the worst that you could advertise in because they are expensive. Last I checked, you could only update it once a year. So January 1st, you put your ad in, and you can't update it. You pay for the entire year. I want to say you pay by the month or per month or for how many months, but you can't alter it until the end of the period. So if you get a year or maybe they do 6 months, but you can't update it. If your number changes, you can't update it. If you want to change your wording, change your title or something, you can't change it. And again, nobody really looks at the Yellow Pages. Okay, we have a Yellow Pages and it's called Google, and we all use it. It's a lot faster. So, I mean, if you're an old time, you know, kind of plumbing company or something, I mean, we're young, so you're probably not an old time company, but I mean, if you're something like that, you know, a lot of older folks still will go to the Yellow Pages. My dad, for example, he's 75. He will check the Yellow Pages before he checks Google. But if you're not looking for that real demographic right there, I would say don't go with that. What was the last one we had? So I guess that was the last one. Oh, okay, and then there's advertising websites. And some of these websites, all they do is advertise. So they bring in you as their so-and-so, you know, their worker, not their worker, but you know, like my construction business is closets. So they'll have a slot to fill for closetry. So they'll have maybe one or two, or maybe just one. I get calls all the time from these. Hey, we would love to feature you in our you know, listing or our thing, and it's super big and millions of people look at it all the time. And it only costs, you know, $100 a month or whatever. Not really. I don't even know what it costs a month. I never bought it, but they do that, and then what it is either you'll pay by the month or you'll pay per hit. And I did do that once with a company called the Better Business Bureau. I don't know if that's nationwide. In California, that's a pretty big thing. If it is nationwide, then you guys know what I'm talking about. But basically, when a customer comes to their website and searches, closets or handbags or whatever it is you do, you will come up, they will click, and then they will send you their info, or maybe they'll get your number and call you. And she said it costs, the girl on the phone, the sales girl, said it was like $7 or $8 per lead. Okay? And she said, oh, wouldn't it be great if you got a lead for only $7? And I was like, well, yeah, I mean, the job costs a lot more than $7, so obviously it would be great. So I got my bill for the first one, and I had gotten one referral from them, and it was like $14. And I'm like, well, wait a minute, I thought it was only 7 or 8 or whatever she had said, and for some reason it wasn't. They had an excuse. And the worst part about that whole scenario was the fact that I got the they called me, but they didn't choose me. They went with someone else. So I had to pay for a lead that I didn't even get to do the job for. So I just called them up and said, forget it, I don't want this. This is not going to work. And another thing I want to tell you guys specifically about the Better Business Bureau, I mean, I hate to bash them. I don't like bashing other businesses. But you'll see on a lot of businesses, they'll say, approved by the Better Business Bureau or approved by so-and-so website. They don't approve you. They don't approve anybody. I mean, their approval is the fact that you're paying them for the service. So when I started paying for my service, I was then approved. So it's kind of folly to say this business is approved. What the Better Business Bureau should say is these people are paying us, so we're putting our name out there. So it's just a little more credibility. That's really all it is. So you can check those out, but most of the time, there's tons of them. I mean, there's tons of those websites. But for me, they didn't really work. I mean, I paid for a lead I didn't even get, so I thought that was stupid. And then the other one is, of course, Google, YouTube, those types of websites. Those are real big name. And those are probably a lot more focused. You actually type in what you want who you want your audience to be, and they'll focus that in for you. So that's something to look into. When we had our Skype interview, if you guys remember that, she said that was what she did, and it worked really well for her. So check into those things, okay? Let's see. So the advertising tactics that you guys choose, it's really dependent on the market that you guys are looking for. Like again, if you're young, you are young. I mean, I'm assuming you're young. You're watching this series, but if you're young and you have a business that's really aimed towards young people, college campuses, hand out flyers, put stickers on trash cans, stuff like that. Me personally, I can't advertise to young people because my demographic is, homeowners, young couples, families, people who are parents, people who own homes. So basically anybody that has good credit and and has money to spend, really is who that is. So I would never advertise in like a skater magazine or something, okay? I would never advertise in I wouldn't go. Somebody told me once when I first got started, go to college campuses, go to Sac City and just hand out flyers, because she said to me, I go to Sac City and there's tons of kids all over and I see people handing out flyers, so you should do it. And it sounded interesting, but really nobody wants to get their closet remodeled in their dorm room, so that's just not my demographic. So again, your advertising tactic is really going to be dependent on your demo. So, but keep that in mind, okay? Because don't advertise to the wrong people, because you're not going to get results, and then it's going to be like, wow, I wasted all this time, I wasted all this effort. Maybe you did, maybe you walked around and handed things out to the wrong people, and it's just a waste of your time. And so another, one of the last topics I want to talk about is it's okay to spend money on advertising. people don't know who you are until they know who you are. So, you could have the best business in all of your town or state or whatever, the country, who knows? You could have the best business in whatever you do in the world. But if people don't know who you are, they're not going to hire you. They're not going to pay for your service or your goods or anything. So, we have to get out from this hole that we're in and expose ourselves to the community, to the consuming community. So, advertising is really the best way to do that. So don't be shy to spend some money. Don't be shy to get out there. And if you have to spend, half your income, on advertising, it will come back to you in the long run if you do it right. Of course, if you do it right. If you make crappy ads and if you get the cheapest stuff you can find, and it's just and you're just trying to save as much money as you can, you may not get the results you want because you're not spending the right amount of money, So keep that in mind. And then the final topic I want to talk about, and I've already talked about it, I know, I'm repeating myself. Don't advertise to your friends, okay? Your friends don't want your service. I mean, if you're in an industry where it's friends based, if it's like your buddies and stuff, like if you're you promote for clubs or something, and all your friends are like your college dorm mates, and they're like, man, where are we gonna go tonight, then you can advertise to them. but services, most products, you really don't want to advertise to your friends because they're gonna want a deal. They're gonna want you to hook them up, and you don't want to do that. When you're first starting out, you need to get the most money you can. Somebody once told me you have to make as much money as fast as you can when you first get started. And that sounds really urgent, but I would say that's somewhat true. So your friends are not going to be like, the first people to go to. And plus, your friends don't want to be advertised to. You don't want to call up your best friend from kindergarten and you haven't seen him in a year because you're away at college and say, hey, Mike, how's it going, dude? Miss you, bro. Do you want to sign up for my gym? They don't like that, okay? It's just not cool. It's just not what you do. So, as I say, word of mouth is the best advertiser. When you guys have clients, no matter what it is, I want you to do one thing. I want you to tell them to tell their friends about your business, okay? So this is my common practice. I do a job, I do an install, okay, on like a Tuesday or whatever. I show up, I do my install, I load up my truck, take all their trash away, take all the excess materials away. But before I leave, I say, thank you very much, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, for your business. Please tell a friend. Please, tell your neighbors, tell your friends, tell them about the service. And they always say, oh, okay, we will. Whether they do or not, I don't know. Some of them do, definitely do. But always tell people to tell their friends, because people don't always think about it, I mean, if you do really, really good work, it will speak for itself, and people will just automatically be like, oh my God, I love it, that has happened to me. Some of the people I work for, they really, really love what I do, and they just go ahead and tell everyone. But even if you're not sure if they're, crazy about it, some people are just like, okay, great, thanks, here's a check, bye, so they're just not that kind of person that really, expresses how much they really love what you've done. So always just say, hey, tell friends, tell your neighbors, tell your mom, tell whoever. I'm going to tell you guys a funny story about a gal I did work for a while back, a couple years ago. Actually, it was almost when I first got started, probably 2010. I went to her house and I gave her a quote for a closet, and when she said, how much would this cost? And I told you guys about this. I don't like to throw a number out. I like to say, well, it could be this, but I'm going to calculate it and give you the exact quote. So she said, how much do you think it'll cost? And I said, well, let me go out to my car and figure it out, and blah, blah, blah. And she said, well, just throw me a number. And I said, okay, like $350 or something. It was something like that. I went out to my car, added it up, blah, blah, blah. And then, no, I take it back. She wanted something that I didn't really offer. So I threw out the number that I thought it might be. And then I was going to have to actually go and figure it out. So she said to me, before I left, because she didn't have the exact quote. She said, "I'll tell you what, if you do it for the first price you gave me, I'll do it right now. If you leave and get and figure out the quote and give it to me, I may or may not even go with you." And that's a kind of a tactic that I told you guys as far as bargaining. So again, I learned it from her. But she said that to me, so I said, well, gosh, it was a real far way out, and I didn't want to go and come back and yada yada. So I said, okay, we'll just do it for that first number. So I did, and I thought, man, this lady, she's just trying to get the best of me. I was a sucker when I was beginning, If that happened to me now, I would totally have a retort, or I would just say, forget it, I'm gone, don't bullshit me, But I did it, and I thought she was just kind of I thought it was a really jerk move. I mean, it was, but she referred me to was it two or three? At least two other people in her area, and she lives quite a ways. She lives about 45 minutes away from the little town I'm in, or from my town. It's not a little town, but the town I'm in. And it's a lot of rich people up there. So she gave me a lot of business, okay? So referrals are always the best. Word of mouth is absolutely the best. So even when you think that someone may or may not have enjoyed what, they don't necessarily are booming about your work, or when you think they're kind of a jerk just in their own right, which this lady was, they could still refer you, and that can be very valuable, okay? The true value of a job or a service or a product that you sell is not the actual product. It's the overall value, or it's the value of that customer for the life of your business. So if I do work for one person, if I do good work, she will tell two people, they will tell two people, they will tell two people. It'll just spiderweb out, you see? So the actual value of a job is not just what I do. That's why you always have to do the best work you can. Best customer service, best work, no BS, go the extra mile for people, okay? I'll get into that later, but that was the last story I wanted to end this episode with. So thanks for watching, guys. Again, please subscribe, please share it with your friends. Tell your friends and family, ha ha ha. See, it works. So again, this was episode 8, advertising, and we'll get some more episodes to you guys real soon.